It's time to gather around the radio for another episode of Comic.Church, hosted by Pastor Drew, the Fairy Godbro, the Reverend Sith Lord himself, Jesse Stay, and the Monsignor of Marvel, Sean Ray. Broadcasting live from the K-Talk Studios, KBJA 1640 AM, and streaming live with video on Facebook. And now, Comic.Church.
Welcome. We are here today for Comic.Church. I'm Jesse Stay. We have Drew Reese in the house, and we have a few we have a regular guest here, Sean.
Hello.
And we have a new guest here.
We do. Katie, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, audience. My name is Katie Matheson. I am a communications director with Alliance for a Better Utah and a casual comic book movie watcher.
Awesome. And we got your level there. It was a little off at the beginning, but we got it.
Great.
So, welcome to the show, everyone.
It's good to be back in the studio.
It is good. We missed you last time.
Oh, I definitely would rather have been here.
You had a few car issues.
Yeah.
I was texting him 5 minutes ahead, saying I'm gonna be there. I literally live 5 minutes away. I scared him to death.
He was eating pancakes.
It's a kid day. I make pancakes every Sunday for my kids, and they expect it.
They better have Mickey ears.
I think pancakes
With the Mickey ears,
is
yeah.
a required Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I should start doing them by theme, and maybe we can post them on our page. We'll I should have done Captain America today, and
Are you that
I could
talented?
do that. I could.
You could do that?
I could. Yeah.
Wow.
I've seen
I
those
can-
one videos.
That means I have to get up earlier. But
Yeah.
Where they have the different colored pancake mix, the batter, and they make the little pictures out of them and everything like that. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I can do that.
That is
It's not
amazing.
it's not that hard. You just have to have the little thing, then you put food coloring in them, and
Or you just have to have skill.
yeah, I do have a little of that.
Little skill. Sorry, I'm just opening up so we can.
Sweet.
If you're
Yeah.
joining us on Facebook, we have the comments open, so feel free to add your contribution to the show and.
Start your own watch party too. I'll be starting mine here soon. You can join mine. I'm Jesse Stay. You can follow it there, or sometimes Drew starts his own, so you can follow him as well. But start your own as well. Share it with your friends.
Yeah, share it. We have a really interesting topic today. So it's kind of something we're going to try here on Comic.Church, where we're going to fuse the real world with our other real world that we have in our heads. But today's topic was one that kind of hit both of us. We have a group message that we usually keep going just as we're coming up with topics for the show. And we all kind of had a similar thought after a certain presidential address about kind of the wrong direction, I guess we would say, I wouldn't say wrong direction. So today's topic is moral patriotism versus a toxic patriotism. And, with Comic.Church, one of our favorite characters is Steve Rogers, Captain America.
Of course.
I think both with Sean and myself, one, you could just see how we're attired. Captain America is a favorite of ours, and I think that probably comes also from our time in the military.
Oh, yeah. Like I've said before, I mean, the Army, that's one thing that kind of drew me towards the Army as opposed to any of the other branches is, Captain America was part of the Army, and so that was one thing that kind of drew me towards the Army. So,
well, and the thing with Captain America, is I think it's a perfect example of what moral patriotism would look like, and there's so many different types of patriotism. We have the wrap yourself in the American flag, God bless the USA, thank the troops. There's that type of patriotism, but then there's a type where an identity patriotism almost.
Mm-hmm.
And Captain America, I like. So one of my favorite presidential speeches, I'll go back a little bit as we get into this topic, and it's 11/11, is that it's a speech from President Lincoln, where and this is just after the closing days of the Civil War.
Right before.
Right before. Yeah, I'm sorry. Right before. Where he implores, he calls out to the American citizens to lean towards the better angels of their nature. Strive just. We can choose which direction we could go. We could choose the spite, we could choose the hate, or we could choose the love, and we could choose to bind the wounds that ail us. And that's kind of where the better angels of our nature. And I'm sure we hear that all throughout. It's become a popular idiom in American lexicon. And I think Captain America is a good representation of what it looks like when we lean towards the better angels of our nature. And we'll dive into this a little bit more. So that's we're going to be using the world of Steve Rogers, Captain America, and his morality, his moral compass, I guess is the example of what we should strive to. And then we have other examples in current times that I think could be perfect examples of what not to do. And so I think that's going to are we all in the
that makes sense. There? That makes sense. Yep.
So I guess let's start out. Like, first of all, we'll have our Mary Magdalene of Marvel, Sean Ray. I guess let's start off since you're
kind of the quote-unquote Cap expert.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, Cap grew up in a different time than we are now. Back in the 40s when patriotism was instilled in everybody. I mean, and they all had the same beliefs, the same thoughts on patriotism and everything like that. And then, when he was froze and woke up into this day and age, he missed a lot of the Vietnam War and like Watergate and a lot of those things. So he still has his views and opinions that he had back in the 40s. And I think that really says a lot of his character, who he is, and still how his beliefs are as strong as they are. Because as the American, through the ages, things have been watered down and we've been exposed to things. I don't know, a lot of people, said we've kind of deflowered into where we are now, and we don't have the same strengths that we did. But, and that's one thing that Cap still has is those beliefs, those strengths, that patriotism. And I think that's kind of important in a lot of people, and what he believes in and how strongly he believes in those things. I mean, if we can each have just a little bit of where he is and his patriotic views, I think it would be a little different in today's, time and age and everything. But, I mean, he's America's Boy Scout. He's grown. One of his views technically is he's a Christian.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, he carries with him into his patriotic beliefs and everything. So, I mean, I don't know. There's when I think of patriotism, he's one of the top things that I before I think of fireworks and a lot of that kind of stuff. That's one of the things that I look at as a patriotic.
Well, and kind of with what you said, he's a byproduct of the greatest generation who happened to sleep through all the parts that really made us cynical and the parts where, to use a spiritual term, where our country fell into apostasy and, basically became an inversion of the very things that it claims to represent and be.
Yeah, I
mean, he does his duty to his God and his country is kind of the idea. In many ways, it's a very Boy Scout type approach. In many ways, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's not watered down or anything like that with his patriotism. I mean, the whole thing with he does his duty to his fellow man, and that's where a lot of his strengths
and that
are.
Over anything
is he does it for his fellow man. He does it, he doesn't do it solely because he believes. He does it, to help those that don't have that voice, that can't stand up to those people. And that's, why he has such strength in it.
Yeah. And there's a moral core that comes with it, on top of his not overtly Christian beliefs. He believes that, but again, his type of patriotism isn't like, well, everybody has to believe just like me. You never see that.
Yeah.
There's a matter of right and wrong.
Yeah.
And, it even comes to the point in, as we got into the later Avenger films we saw, where the country no longer is doing what's right. And the captain has to make the decision, do I, my whole motif is based off of this country, but yet the country's morals no longer represent mine. How do you handle that?
I think he represents him anyways. He's called Captain America, but his morals surpass America. And I think the name Captain America is a representation and symbol of what America should be
and could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hit that on the nose. It's a symbol. It's what we look to as patriotism. Even though there has been times where he has stepped down because America has been so corrupt and everything like that. He's like, hey, I can't be the symbol anymore because everything is so wrong. One of the quotes that he even has in one of the books, in the comic books, is, "I cannot represent the American government. The president does that. I must represent the American people." And that's what I love about it is he is not necessarily, doesn't stand up there and say, "Hey, look at me. I am the American. I am this." No, he stands up there and says, "I fight for the people. I am the people's voice. I am, That's where his strength.
And I'm going to
comes
take
in.
us into the DC universe just a little bit because I'm a
no.
huge Superman fan, and in many ways, like the DC equivalent of Captain America would be Superman. And Superman takes that to a whole new level. And I'm not going to try and change the subject here. I know that the topic is Captain America, but like Superman takes it to a global and a universal level, and that's these are people of the world, and he's here from another country to show the world how to surpass the world. And I think Captain America is very much a representation of that type of mentality, using America as the paradigm.
And it wouldn't be our show if we didn't weekly talk about the book The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Yeah.
And so, they are representative of the same character, the monomyth, of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And so, they're basically representations of the same character in both universes.
Yeah. Well, and
Superman's better though.
Oh my!
I won't bring that up today. Sorry. We'll talk about that another day.
Well, Cap has a Hulk, so. No, I like one of the things that they do have the similarities of Superman and Cap is, they both stand for the same thing, and that's truth, justice, and the American way, and that's been both in both of their comics, and so that is a similarity that they do have is their belief in that. The nice thing is, like you had said, for the world, Captain America is a representation of America, but he is a hero for the world.
Yeah. And they're taking him into the universe as well. I mean, with Thor and taking him beyond the world, which is what's so cool about what we're seeing now with Captain America.
Yeah, and again, like we were saying, how Captain Steve is the shining example of us reaching towards the better angels of our nature, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that. And also, we're going to be getting into toxic patriotism, how we can recognize it, what it is, and combat it, because ultimately, our country is what we make it, and if we want, that moral patriotism to take over, then we got to be that moral patriotism. So we're going to be talking about that and a lot more right here on Comic.Church. We'll be right back after this.
The Kubota L2501 tractor is one of the best-selling compact tractors in America for a reason. They're comfortable, spacious, easy to control, and have a range of performance-matched implements to tackle all kinds of jobs. Right now, get a Kubota L2501 with a 6-year warranty, plus 0% APR financing for up to 60 months, or great customer instant rebates. Now through December 31st, 2018. See us or go to KubotaUSA.com for more information.
Find a Kubota dealer near you at GoKubota.com.
When the fake news stations are slick as ice this winter, cut through with K-Talk Media, your favorite local talk station.
AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. No limits, no labels. Aging is changing. Visit aarp.org/UT for more information. Make the most of each day with AARP.
When a challenge rises up, do we let it stand in our way or go the distance to overcome it? I didn't want to stay at the bottom, but after I was shot in Afghanistan, I was told I'd never walk again, if I even survived. My wife and healthcare providers were there to help me climb my hill. I learned that psychological care is key to recovery from both physical and invisible wounds. Decide now that I will take the first step. Visit realwarriors.net or call 800-874-2273.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. Our veterans put everything on the line to protect our freedom. We may never be able to repay them for their sacrifice, but we can show them just how much we appreciate all they've done. Please visit www.volunteer.va.gov.
The weekend is coming, and you need to plan a date night. You could go to a movie and dinner, but there's nothing original about that. Here's a new and exciting idea. Take your date indoor shooting at the Armory Gun Range. Instead of renting a bowling lane or playing miniature golf, you can rent a shooting lane at the Armory Gun Range. Impress your spouse or your date with your original plan. The Armory can provide both guns and ammo, and rookies are welcome.
I would be excited if my boyfriend took me shooting. The Armory is located in Sandy at 9210 South and 248 West. The phone number is 801-447-1789. Again, that is 801-447-1789. You can also check out their website at armoryshootingrange.com. The range is open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
The Armory Gun Range, blowing holes in boring date nights.
Welcome back, comic fans. We now return to Comic.Church, leaving you right where we left off before the break. And now here's your host, Pastor Drew the Fairy Godbrother, the Monsignor of Marvel, Sean Ray, and the Reverend Sith Lord himself, Jesse Stay.
Welcome back.
We're geeking out over Superman here on the side.
Yeah, they've been talking DC Universe this entire commercial break. And it's like, hi, we're coming back in 30 seconds. They're still talking. I'm like, hey, we're coming back 10 seconds. They're still talking. They don't listen to me here.
I'm getting really good at like keeping you on suspense to the very last minute here.
It's just comic books in general. I mean, I enjoy it, so I can geek about it.
We'll allow that. We'll allow you to do that. So
we have a new Facebook page now.
We do. So we've split the brand a little bit because it was a little confusing when we were doing Comic.Church and they were telling people to go like our church Facebook page, and then when we're doing the church episodes telling people to go like our Comic.Church. So there was a little confusion, so we've actually created now 2 separate Facebook pages for the shows. So
yeah. So if you like one or the other, pay attention to one or the other, and
or both.
That'll also help us know how to tune the direction of the entire church brand as well. So we're interested in what you guys like and what you're interested in. There's parts that we really like too, so it'll be fun to learn from you guys as we grow this. And
we're still trying to find our feet. So
yeah. Please feel free to give any input or advice if there's a topic that you are kind of interested in that you'd like to see us kind of delve into. Please let us know. There's
or if you want to laugh at us or criticize Sean, let us know.
Yeah, if there's something that you want us to hear, and we can
if you want to pay us money and sponsor the show, we're open to that too.
Definitely. So before the break, we were just kind of getting into describing why we are putting the term moral patriotism with Steve Rogers' Captain America. So let's get into a little bit about what do we mean when we're talking toxic patriotism. And so I brought my friend. She's my political expert on the show.
I'm so excited for this.
So Katie, you're the also the communications director for
Alliance for a Better
Utah. And I love you guys. I've been following you guys because it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. So finally, I found someone who is a voice for my inner voice.
I like that. That's going to be our new tagline.
That's great.
The voice for your inner voice.
So, one of the reasons I asked you to come in is because I know you're kind of passionate about this issue.
Kind of, yeah.
You've helped ghostwrite some op-eds and really get a conversation going on about a toxic brand of patriotism that we started seeing pop up in our communities the last couple of years. And first of all, why don't you just talk about that a little bit? Like, what is your
toxic patriotism? So this past summer, it was kind of the height of the conversations around football players kneeling during the national anthem. And I kind of want to preface this by saying my husband is a vet. He comes from a family of veterans. His father is a veteran. And so we have a lot of veterans in our family, and we spend a lot of time talking about this issue. And of course, my husband is disabled from his service. And so, we spend a lot of time at the VA with the old timers up there who we adore, and, it's so much fun talking to them. We had this national conversation about people kneeling during the national anthem. And of course, it was particularly focused on the deaths of young, particularly men of color, who were being killed by police disproportionately. We had from the president on down, we've had people saying things like, this is unpatriotic, they're disrespecting the flag, they're disrespecting our country, which is incredibly interesting because this is I found the kneeling to be a very respectful form of protest, which I think is just, great.
And was in fact a suggestion to Colin Kaepernick by a
former a vet.
Another disabled veteran said, if you really want to make a statement, but also be respectful, do this.
Mm-hmm, right. So I think at first he was sitting, and then they said you should kneel, like take one knee. And I find it so interesting. Humans, we tend to have very short memories, and of course, our country was founded on protest. We are the ultimate protest group, and so I think that this all hinges on. We kind of define patriotism differently in this country. There are like factions that define patriotism differently. Ultimately, the textbook definition is, love of one's country, or, protecting your country, or whatever that is. And so with this conversation in mind, I worked with one of my interns, and he put together this great article, this great op-ed in the Salt Lake Tribune called, I don't remember what the title of it was, but it was about faux patriotism.
Yeah.
And basically what he did was he called out some things and said, you're calling these patriotic, but in fact they ignore the foundation of our country and what our ideals are. And so if we want to bring it back to Captain America, as I was preparing for this conversation, I was looking up Captain America, and it occurred to me, and correct me if I'm incorrect, but Captain America is one of the few superheroes who in fact is not born with this particular talent, right?
Yeah.
Or so if you look at like Batman, he has a specific thing that happens to him, and then he takes his money and becomes Batman, right? Yeah. And so Captain America goes and he's just an average human, and he goes and he tries to enlist, and he can't, and then it's given to him, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm correct, he's one of the few superheroes, if the only superhero who does this on his own, like of his own volition, and not because
of his own goodness.
Right, because of his own goodness, right? He's powered by that. And so because of that, he really represents, he's the perfect Captain America, right? Because he represents the good and average humans, which is kind of what, this country was founded on. It's not just rich, people who are born into a certain status. All people should, and of course by all people they meant all white landowning males, but then of course we expanded that.
Yeah.
But so Captain America really, to me, is a great representation of the actual patriotism. But then you have these people. I went to a rally the thing that brought this op-ed to mind, and the thing that brought this idea to mind as we were talking about everybody kneeling during the national anthem, is right after Charlottesville, the terrible incident in Charlottesville, I went to a rally here in Salt Lake that was basically like, no, we don't support Nazis in the United States. Mm-hmm. And there was a woman walking through this huge crowd of people like, yeah, you know, everybody was really rallying, and she was there to protest against us protesting. Yeah. And she literally had herself wrapped in an American flag. And she was walking around wrapped in this American flag and telling us how we were wrong and all this, we need to support this, weird nationalism that's kind of taking off. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. And I think, were you going to say something, Jesse?
I was just thinking, I mean, the irony of some of that, and that here being wrapped in an American flag, which in and of itself, I was a Eagle Scout and been a Scoutmaster and other things, and the idea of wrapping yourself in an American flag is disrespectful to the flag in and of itself. So here she was doing a form of protest on her own by wrapping herself in that flag, in a disrespectful way as compared to a more respectful form of protest. That's fascinating.
Well, and it's a certain level of cognitive dissonance to be in that state. And another example that I was thinking of as another perfect example of toxic patriotism is the Freedom Festival in Provo. And I'll say full disclosure, I actually used to work for them. The Utah National Guard I didn't work for the Freedom Festival. I worked for the Utah National Guard. And I was a military liaison for the show. So I saw a lot of the behind the scenes. They have the military families out there as props. Mm-hmm. They're saying they're thanking military families, but, they're the props there to make it appear and prove to everyone how patriotic they are. Mm-hmm. But they're completely secondary to anything. They don't worry about the comforts of them. They're there for props. Another example is the Freedom Festival Parade. We see community groups that are LGBT that are being excluded from it. Oh, you're LGBT. You can't walk in our 4th of July parade, as if, being LGBT is anti-American. But in their form of toxic patriotism, it is. Because it goes against, it's almost become a hybrid fusion of religion and patriotism, which in itself has become a religion.
How would you, this is something that I find super interesting. How would you define moral patriotism versus toxic patriotism?
I would, if I had to put it in a term that we'd all recognize, e pluribus unum. And toxic would be one nation under God.
Wow.
Because then if you think about it, it was in the 50s that was inserted as a way to counteract, the Red Scare of Russia, which is ironic in this day and age now, because that same party that put that in place is now, in bed with them, allegedly. So the historical irony is just enough to make your head pop. But I think what's ironic about that, let's use that case in the example of our Pledge of Allegiance. Where did they insert under God?
One nation under God, indivisible.
And before that, it was one nation, indivisible. So literally, they divided the nation by inserting one nation under God. Like, just look at the symbology of that in the language. And, and we talk about on the show often is, language is power. The words we speak into creation manifest reality. If you speak it, it becomes. And so, having everyone recite something where they literally inserted a division in between the phrase one nation indivisible, and they slap as a razor blade one nation under God. And, half the country didn't believe, in the Judeo-Christian mindset because, let's be honest. In the United States, when we hear people saying one nation under God, that's one nation under Jesus. One nation under
a very specific God,
very specific brand that, and again, in a complete irony, is the antithesis of the very person that Jesus is and represents. But and that's usually what happens is with when it gets into these toxic, and so I guess back to your question, what is toxic patriotism? It's a form of patriotism where it becomes a zero-sum game, tribalism. Our form of patriotism with our tribe is the right brand of patriotism, and everybody else is wrong, and we're going to make you wrong, and we're going to penalize you if you're wrong, and we're going to come after you and in every single way if you don't subscribe to our exact brand.
To me, toxic patriotism is anything that creates, and there's both literal and metaphorical meaning to this. Anything that inserts a wall or border into our nation, or any nation, quite frankly. But America represents, it's the pluribus unum, out of many one. That's what America represents.
And that's where our power came from.
Exactly.
That's our strength.
And coming from a Boy Scout perspective, I actually really like the Boy Scouts, with the exception of when toxic patriotism gets into it, and they've made a lot of strides over the years. They actually, in their leadership training, they actually talk about the pluribus unum and out of many one. And for anyone out there who ascribes, and Utah has a big Boy Scout base, anyone who ascribes to the Boy Scout mentality of patriotism, that is the underlying method that the Boy Scouts of America are trying to teach their Boy Scouts, and we instead move towards more of the one
tribal
nation under God, tribal patriotism, and that's not what America is about.
And
Boy Scouts didn't come out of America either, by the way.
Oh, wait, where'd they come from?
They came from England.
Yeah.
Boy Scouts of England.
Lord Baden-Powell.
Yeah.
All right.
It was a worldwide effort. It was intended to be a worldwide. It still is a worldwide effort. I did Boy Scouts in Indonesia when I was there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a Captain America quote for you guys. So
awesome.
From the 1980s, Captain America spoiled the plot by a rogue American intelligence agency. They were trying to attack the Soviet Union and make America the top, top dog in the world. And he said, and this is probably, we should put this up in our halls of power, right?
Yeah.
I represent the American dream, a dream that has precious little to do with borders, boundaries, and the kind of blind hatred your ilk espouses. And that was Captain America saying that to an American intelligence agency.
That's beautiful.
And so he really does, I believe that moral patriotism is not something that is just American. It is not just for Americans. It is Lady Liberty, being... we are the place where people can fulfill their version of the American dream.
Well, and almost like tribalism and patriotism can't coexist, or tribalism and moral patriotism can't coexist, because when we do that, then it becomes the toxic patriotism, and it becomes a zero-sum game between the tribes.
Right. Yeah.
That divides.
Yeah. And we started seeing, there was a big kind of grassroots movement back in right after President Obama was elected, where a lot of this patriotism was kind of co-opted. And, people were wearing costumes and wrapping themselves in flags. And as, after Trump was elected, a lot of people on the other side of that started saying, we need to take back patriotism and what patriotism means and what people think of when they think of patriotism. But I totally agree with you that once you devolve into tribes and once it becomes us versus them, and once you start trying to build literal or figurative walls between yourself and others, that's when it becomes problematic.
Exactly. And like we were saying, the whole basis of e pluribus unum, out of many one, the times, if you look back historically, when we were our strongest was when we were united. And, through our diversity, we found our strength. Through, we need to get back to that. But we're headed to break. You're listening to Comic.Church on K-Talk, AM 1640, real local two-way talk. We're talking about moral patriotism versus toxic patriotism. I can't even talk. And how Steve Rogers in Captain America is the great example of that. So we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. Our veterans put everything on the line to protect our freedom. We may never be able to repay them for their sacrifice, but we can show them just how much we appreciate all they've done. You can help by simply sharing your time, lending a warm smile, a supportive hand, or a sympathetic ear to someone who needs it. Everyone can do something to make veterans know just how much we appreciate their service. Please visit www.volunteer.va.gov. What will you do?
I am a veteran. I spent 2 years alone and homeless.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My victory was finding the support to get back on my feet.
DAV helps veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I'm a veteran. When I got out, I felt like nowhere was safe.
So veterans can reach victories, great and small.
My victory was finding the help I needed. Thanks to DAV, now I feel like I'm human again.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
When it's cold outside, warm up with the hottest live local two-way talk. K-Talk Media, 1640 AM.
What if you were wearing something sexy? What if you were drinking? What if you made the first move? No matter what, sexual assault is never your fault. Support is available 24/7 through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Call 1-800-656-HOPE or visit RAINN.org. That's RAINN.org. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN, reminding you it's never your fault.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Choosing your next Utah home should be a fun and exciting experience. As Utah's heritage home builder, Perry Homes is constantly striving to give our home buyers more for their money. More new homes in Utah, more desirable Utah home locations, more timeless designs, more inherent home value, and lasting pride of ownership. At Perry Homes, we make it our top priority to ensure the home buying process is as joyful and stress-free as possible. Our 40-plus year heritage has been forged on the principle of building Utah homes of high value in the communities where Utah families want to live and giving our home buyers the quality of home we're proud to call a Perry home. Visit us at perryhomesutah.com to see current Utah home locations and available home styles and floor plans. Perry Homes. We build homes where Utah families want to live.
Welcome back to Comic.Church on K-Talk AM 1640, real local two-way talk. And we are back.
This is such a fun show.
A little bit that we had just been talking about and stuff, or just some of the beliefs that America kind of came up on. And that's the thing is, I think a lot of toxic patriotism are things that are going opposed to, you know, the original bills that were brought up in the America. What made America the way it is? You know, slavery, getting rid of, freedoms. You can, having different beliefs in different religions, different everything like that. And so now when people are saying, oh, you can't believe in this, you can't do that, it's going opposed against what America was founded on. It's going against a lot of the beliefs and everything like that. And so that to me is, where the toxic patriotism is, the things that are going against what founded America, what founded, what it is in the Declaration of Independence and those kind of things. And there's a lot of that, where just having to have a whole Black Lives Matter movement that's going against, the Declaration, having to kind of be afraid to be, you can't stand up and say, well, I'm a white and I'm proud, that kind of stuff. I mean, everyone should be able to be proud for who they are and what they believe in and not be scared to say something because they're going to be mocked or, bullied because of their beliefs or anything like that. I mean, it goes with religion, it goes with education, it goes with race, color, anything.
Yeah.
And that's what America
is. And go into the tribalism of that, the reason why is because in the past, it's, my tribe is great, we have pride in our tribe, but in order to maintain that, we need to take you out or lower you down a few pegs or two. And, so again, that it's that toxic brand that, I don't know.
It's the entire reason.
How do you find the balance? And I guess we talk about that on the show a lot. Is maintaining balance.
Well, it's the entire reason that world hunger exists is because of that tribalism. It's sometimes literal tribalism, but
and it's usually over manufactured scarcity.
Yeah,
and it goes to poverty, and a lot of it goes back to like the money and everything like that. Is look at pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. They're holding a lot of medications and things like that against people because it's not benefiting their pocketbook if they release and allow this stuff, but they're making us, you need to take this medication because I have my hand in this pharmaceutical company, so you need to stay on these medications.
Yeah.
But say you go to cannabis, I mean, that's going to cut down a lot of these other pharmaceutical companies that are, billion-dollar companies. But if you release a medication that one medication that can do multiple things, how is that going to benefit these people's pocketbooks? It's not. So they're opposed to a lot of that kind of stuff, and they're not allowing people to be able to succeed. I mean, that's what America was founded on is a dream, and everyone has a dream, and that's why they want to come here is to start that dream. And we're kind of going away from that because other people have their own opinions, and if it's not what they want, then it's wrong.
It's really interesting that, like, in the Marvel universe, we talk a lot about people being born as, quote, mutants and having special abilities that they're born with and turning those into strengths. And Captain America wasn't born that way. But you know what? Another big theme of the Marvel universe is evolution. And the way we as Homo sapiens have evolved and the way we survived against our other similar Homo family, why we're the only surviving species in that family of the sapiens variety. We are the ones that were able to come up with the ability to communicate and across large, vast areas. And if we don't allow that evolution to continue to expand and grow, those that don't are going to be the ones that end up becoming extinct as well. That's why we're looking at. That's why Elon Musk is interested in getting out of this planet. That's another evolutionary growth for us. And it's interesting that Captain America represents that element of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing is, to go off with mutants and everything like that, is if somebody has a better ability, if somebody is smarter, it threatens other people. And that's, why, people were threatened by mutants. That's why Trask Industries was created to create or to eliminate mutants, because they were threatened by the mutants. They were threatened that their ability, that they felt that, these people can take us down and we're not on top anymore.
Fear.
And that's,
Fear is very powerful.
To fear. Mm-hmm. Fear is the path to the dark side.
Fear is the ultimate destroyer.
That's right.
Whatever. Not only is it a destroyer, but it's a controller. And and again, fear is one. If you're on our show often, listen to it. Fear is a common theme that we talk about, because learning to recognize it is one way how to disempower it. Learning to recognize these fear statements, and that's kind of we can get back to what's been happening here in real life. With we had the President of the United States from the Oval Office get up and basically make a speech that you would honestly expect to hear from a token bad guy in the Marvel universe, and it's ironic. Also, Vice President Mike Pence looks like the token villain in comic books as well.
That's funny,
but
never thought of that. Yeah,
but it's ironic how it and the president likes to use the word, it's like they're straight out of central casting. Yeah, everything you guys are doing, you're casting the perfect villain. Literally, it's like almost cliche how villainy it's becoming. And so we heard this presidential address from the Oval Office that was just filled to the brim with fear speech. Fear of the others, the otherizing, another term that we use often on this show. It was otherizing, it was lowering, they're bringing your drugs, they're rapists, there's this, there's that. It's the Schrodinger's immigrant, where they're both coming to take your jobs, but then also live off of welfare and not work. And it's everything that you can possibly think of that a certain demographic is afraid of. And within 9 minutes, he hit all the best ofs going down, trying to put those fears onto the others. And that's something that, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen come.
He's
from
building
the Oval
power.
Office.
He's read all the books on how to build power, and that's what he's trying to do. Is he's using every rule trick in the book to build power.
Yeah,
and there's ways to fight that too.
Well, he's got his own little book. And did you hear the part in the speech where he said "Hail Hydra"?
Oh, I heard that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it, kind of comes down to, and it's, from the comic books and stuff, it's a Red Skull type of speech. It's like, seriously, some of the things.
You know what we need to do? We need to. I'm going to totally do this.
Instead of the orange head,
you know the
red.
the meme videos. You know the meme videos of like Hitler doing his speech, and they put different. What is it? They put different videos on top of it or whatever, so it sounds like they're doing a Hitler-like speech.
Oh, yeah.
We need to do that with like a Hydra-like speech with Trump. And anyway, stay tuned to the Facebook page for that one.
It's sad. So what is that? What is that they call it? Where if you bring up or you reference Hitler, like you something, it's a fallacy.
The conversation ends, basically.
Yeah.
That's the natural progression of all conversations on the internet.
Yeah.
They all end up with
now
Hitler.
Look what I just did.
but here's the thing, though. Like, we study history for a reason. Like, are we honestly naive enough to think that, that Hitler thing happened, but it's never going to happen again. So let's not pay attention to all the warning signs, because that's a logical fallacy and that's not cool in conversation. So let's just pretend like we're never going to have a Hitler again. And that's what's, I don't know. I study history.
We have to remember.
Yeah.
We have to remember.
History is my favorite subject. It terrifies me. I turn on the news. I've limited my news consumption now. So, I have a little bit in the morning to get my casualty report when I wake up, and then usually I'll turn on like in the evening, and then the rest I'm living in Netflix world. So, but as far as the historical cyclical pattern, like, we are in the 1930s of Europe right now. Like, if there was a checklist of everything that was done as to the steps that led to both World War II and the Holocaust and everything that happened, like, we're a good 3/4 of the way down the checklist. And it's like no one's paying attention, and every time you bring it up saying, oh, well, that's that fallacy, you're referencing Hitler, you can't converse and whatever, you lose. No, this is history. It's not debate. It's there's literal checklists, and that's what's really terrifying is, in the span of 2 generations, we've become the very enemy that we basically put up everything to defend. Like, we do have concentration camps with children in them. Like, call it what you want. They're concentration camps with children in them.
Yeah.
In tent cities.
And, George Washington knew that something like this might happen.
Yeah.
He warned, actually, in his farewell address, he said, guard against the impostures of pretend patriotism. He knew that this was a possibility. And I mean, if we're going to be looking at history and, the setup to World War II and the Holocaust, what was going on before that was people's pocketbooks were being impacted, right? They were hurting in Germany. And Hitler, in his evil way, said it's them. They are the problem. It's people who are Jewish, and they're the ones.
Germany got the raw end of the stick after World War I.
Yeah, I mean, start a fight. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And so, we see this now where it's outrageous to try and pay your family's hospital bill. People are hurting, when they try and go to see a doctor. People are hurting when they're trying to pay their bills. Like, the economy, for all, the numbers here and there, great, people are, unemployment rates are way down, but they're working minimum wage jobs, and minimum wage jobs don't pay bills.
They don't.
And so...
Or you have to work two of them, or three of them.
Right, multiple jobs, right. And I have a great... empathy for people, who are hurting in that way. And it's frustrating to watch, various politicians come in and say, it's those people. It is the people who are crossing the border illegally. Now, let me, add on to that of course, I am not against additional border security. And I think that Trump was right when he said it's a humanitarian crisis, but it's not, he's trying to frame it like it's a humanitarian crisis for white people in America. That's not who it's a humanitarian crisis for. It's for the people who are trying to come here. Yeah. So yes, we should address that. And yes, there are things that need to be done, but $5 billion for a wall, let's spend some of that on extra, border security the right way. But then also let's look at reinvesting in our communities in smart ways, and then maybe starting to, eliminate reasons why people would need to attack the other in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And recognizing the other rising, and realizing that when that's happening, you're being manipulated.
Yeah.
Your reality is being manipulated to show you something that isn't really happening. And recognizing the tools of manipulation. And if you look at what happened this week with that address, that entire thing was a tool of manipulation.
Absolutely.
And it's terrifying that, just in a few short years, from the time that I was in the military, it's like the very thing that I swore to protect is happening here. It's like, at what point does patriotism, moral patriotism, demand that we stand up against that? So we're going to be talking about that. We're headed up to news break. We'll be back 6 minutes after the top of the hour. You're listening to Comic.Church on K-Talk.
Hey there, comic book fans and believers in all things geekdom. This is Pastor Drew, the Fairy God Bro, and I just want to let you know that all of us here at Comic.Church are working hard to build a place that we can all come to, a place of refuge, a place to be edified by the universes that inspire us the most. And this show, it's just the launching off point. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast, Church, using your favorite podcasting service. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, and more. Also, please like our Facebook page, Church on K-Talk. On our page, you'll have a chance to interact with us live each Sunday. Plus, you'll have a chance to hear from us as we post our thoughts, inspirational somethings, and whatnots all throughout the week. We have so much in store for 2019 and into the future, and we invite you to come along and be a part of it. We at Comic.Church know exactly how important fans are, and we thank you for taking a chance and being our fans.
Military life is rewarding, but it isn't always easy.
Managing the stress can affect even the strongest warrior.
But I will stay mission ready.
I will keep my mind and body fit.
Talk to my chaplain.
Seek care early.
Strive for progress, not perfection.
I got this.
I got this.
Take the first step. There's no better time than now.
Reaching out is a sign of strength. Visit realwarriors.net or call 800-874-2273.
Here's your You're listening to the all-new K-Talk Media, KBJA 1640 AM, Sandy, Salt Lake, and the entire Wasatch Front, bringing you live, local, two-way talk.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Michael Harrington. President Trump will not be pressured into giving up his plan for a border wall by recalcitrant Democrats. So says Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
It really does perplex me how you expect this to end when you tell the President of the United States you can't get it. You get $1 for a wall when in the past Democrats have appropriated billions for the wall. What is he supposed to do? Just give in? He's not going to give in.
He was a guest on Fox News Sunday, the partial government shutdown heading into its fourth week. More than 40 states' attorneys general have announced a $1.5 million settlement with the Neiman Marcus Group over a data breach, a big one.
The breach exposed customer credit card data at 77 Neiman Marcus stores nationwide. Over a 3-month period in 2013, about 370,000 Neiman Marcus credit cards were accessed by unknown third parties unlawfully, and at least 9,200 were used fraudulently. Under terms of the settlement, Neiman Marcus agrees to maintain reasonable procedures to protect customers' personal data and obtain an information security assessment as well as report from a third-party professional.
Correspondent Jeremy House. Among the evidence recovered from the home of a man who shot and killed a rookie California police officer were 2 unregistered guns and a letter claiming police had been bombarding him with ultrasonic waves. Authorities in the city of Davis have released the letter they say was written by Kevin Limbaugh. The 48-year-old killed himself after fatally shooting Officer Natalie Corona. A powerful explosion, apparently caused by a gas leak, blew apart a Paris bakery yesterday and devastated the street it was located on. 4 people were killed, dozens injured, and they're still digging through the rubble. More victims might be found. Witnesses described the sound of the explosion as deafening and the loudest thing they had ever heard. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Have you ever seen a pest controller spraying chemicals in your home? It makes you wonder, if their chemicals are safe, then why do they suit up and wear respirators only to leave you to walk back in unprotected? G'day, I'm Scott from Plug-in Pest Free, and I'm here to tell you there's a better way. In an age where we now have the choice to drive electric cars, you too can electronically rid your home or business of unwanted rodents and pests. The answer is Plug-in Pest Free. 100% chemical-free, Plug-in Pest Free is your safest bet for your family and pets. Our bestseller, the Plug-in Pest Free Pro, will cover up to 4,000 square feet. Now that's fair dinkum. So order yours today at gopestfree.com. Use promo code RADIO20 for 20% off plus free shipping and a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's gopestfree.com, promo code RADIO20. Don't spray and regret, plug in and forget. GoPestFree.com today.
British Prime Minister Theresa May pleading with lawmakers to accept her deal for leaving the European Union, warning that faith in democracy is at stake.
Writing in the Sunday Express ahead of a critical vote this week, May urged lawmakers to do what's right for the country. She said rejecting the will of the people would be a catastrophic and unforgivable breach of trust in democracy. May has urged Parliament to support her little-loved EU divorce deal so Britain doesn't leave the EU on the 29th of March without an agreement on exit terms. Zaria Shakili, London.
Audience members seeing Beautiful, the life story of Carole King, got a surprise when King appeared in the role of herself to celebrate the show's 5th anniversary on Broadway. The packed house at the Stephen Sondheim Theater erupted as King showed up at Saturday night's performance to perform Beautiful, the final song. She says she's amazed the show's been out there that long. News and analysis at Town.
Business phone system on your mobile phone. Choose a business phone number, make calls, and send texts. Stay connected and work from anywhere with features like Wi-Fi calling and our desktop app. Set up your account in minutes with no long-term contracts and 24/7 customer support. Make your small business big. Now get $20 off your first month when you visit grasshopper.com/radio. That's grasshopper.com/radio.
With OnStar, you don't need to drive the newest model car to have the latest in connectivity. If you're not connected, now get select OnStar services free for 3 years with no strings attached. You'll get a mobile app that lets you start your car or unlock your doors from your phone, and monthly diagnostic email reports. Just push the blue OnStar button and ask for 3 years of free mobile app and diagnostic services. Emergency and security services are not included. Eligible on select 2011 and newer vehicles. Visit OnStar.com for details, coverage map, and system limitations.
The essence of sales is transferring enthusiasm to the customer. K-Talk Media is looking for people who have an unabashed enthusiasm for live local radio and who would love to share the message of our station with businesses who would like to tap into our large, loyal audience. Do you want a fun, energetic, and rewarding position with a company that makes a difference? Then join our team and feel the love. Full, part-time, or anytime positions available with great compensation. Call us today, 801-253-4883, 801-253-4883, or go to ktalkmedia.com and shoot us a message.
now return to Hour 2 of Comic Church on K-Talk, AM 1640. Real local two-way comic psycho spiritual talk. With your host, Drew the Fairy Godbro, the Reverend Sith Lord Jesse Stay, and the Monsignor of Marvel, Sean Ray. And now we return to the sanctum of spirituality, Comic Church.
You know, we need some business cards with those titles on them.
We do. Exactly. You got to actually be on the microphone. We're doing radio.
Spirituality.
No, there's two titles for Sean though. I don't know. I like the Monsignor of Marvel, but I also like the Mary Magdalene of Marvel too. So
Mary Magdalene's kind of catchy.
I like that one. Go with that one.
So let's take a poll online on our website.
Yeah, we should.
Go to Comic.Church.
We should start a
comic.church.com.
We don't have that site set up yet, but
it will be coming soon.
But it will. It's just comic.church. So we bought the domain, just haven't designed it yet. But yeah, so we are talking.
We're talking about manipulation.
Manipulation.
In the media, and I have a so one thing that I had someone ask the other day that they were asking so both Drew and I, we do a little bit of marketing in different capacities and have a little bit of background in some of this. Some of us even more than others in different areas. I had someone, it was in a Facebook group for marketers that they were in. They were trying to figure out if anyone had done work in the political space in marketing. And I mentioned I'd done a little. I kind of pick and choose my clients, but and this isn't an advertisement in any way, but I mentioned that the only way in the political space nowadays to really succeed, you can't look for a marketer. You have to look for someone that does more than marketing and gets into the media manipulation space, because that's the only way to survive today, unfortunately, is through manipulation of the media and the message, which is a shame.
It is. And you say manipulation, and it is, it's
a negative
exactly
word.
what
it's
it
not,
is.
Yeah.
But also, how do I say this? Plato's closet, Plato's cave. Different thing. But if Plato's Closet would like to sponsor us for that name drop. Plato's cave. So, it's the philosophical allegory that we're in caves, and we're basically, our heads are like strapped to a rock, and we're looking at projections, shadows on a wall from the projectionist behind us, and we have no comprehension who that is, what's going on back there. As far as we're concerned, our reality is what's on that cave wall, and nothing else beyond that. And that there comes to a point where you consciously evolve to where you recognize, wait a minute, those are shadows on a cave wall. You recognize that you're in a cave, there's a projectionist, and you get yourself out and go up into the real world. So understanding that Plato's cave, although it's an allegory, it is definitely real life.
Yeah.
And so there is no such thing really as reality.
Mm-hmm.
There are different people that have manufactured what they want reality to be, and there's the agreed upon collective reality. And I'm honestly of the mindset that if 50.001% of the population of Earth believe that the sky is green, lime green,
it is.
It will be.
Yeah.
And there will be the science to explain why it is, because
in the end,
majority of reality accepts that's the reality, and that's what reality will become. And it's a visualization, that's an analogy, although I think it would be true. But I think we're also seeing it.
Well, it is true because it's electrical signals in the brain. That's all it is.
Exactly. And we're really getting meta in this explanation. But understanding that reality is very much palatable, that it can be molded, it can be shaped, and that people can be led to believe something. And if you convince enough people to believe that, that basically becomes their reality. And we're seeing that in politics. That's the entire plan that the Trump administration is laying out. They're trying to control the reality of their 34% because that's all they need. And as long as they can keep that crafted reality contained, they win. Let's move it to here local. Something we saw with Prop 2. We had the opposition that was against Prop 2 try to manufacture a reality. Think of the children. It's so dangerous. THC, there's no such thing as medical THC. And they were literally repeating nonsense. If you understand what they were talking about, they were literally shouting nonsense, but they shouted it long enough with a big enough microphone and with the Deseret News and the Utah Legislature and the LDS Church and the Utah Medical Association all backing it up. That nonsense became real for enough people that they voted against it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's real, if it's based in reality. It doesn't matter. But they were able to craft that reality for that subset of people. So understand that reality can be molded.
Yeah, you have the ultimate example, the Russians manipulating the election. Our current president is a result of that manipulation by an entirely different country, which is scary.
And realizing the ability of that. And social media has made it really easy. You used to have to convince all the newspapers, and it was really hard to get a generalized everyone on the same script type scenario. And so, understanding that the people that possess that knowledge of how to do that, they are literally illusionists that are manufacturing a different reality and understanding then that is possible.
Yeah. And it's, the
way to combat it is recognizing it. And so we things like fear, fear statements. Anytime you hear fear statements, first of all, anytime you hear the phrase, think of the children, just know you're being manipulated. The only way that
see
word
a picture
is
of someone with children around them.
Yeah, that's second layer, but just the phrase, that's a popular propaganda phrase. Oh my gosh, think of the children. They're invoking fear. They're trying to get people to stop using their higher reasoning processes of the brain and just become reactionary. And usually in a reactionary state, insecure, fearful people will look for the alpha or whoever the leader is or whoever's spouting or talking the loudest. And it's usually the person that started those fear languages or using those fear terms, using the manipulation tactics. And so I guess what we've talked about a lot is recognizing when those tricks are being used. Once you recognize it, ask yourself, why am I being manipulated? What is the intent? What is the purpose? And, I think in so many cases with toxic patriotism, we usually see it wrapped around with a phony narrative, fear, propaganda. It's a reality that is not real.
Somebody who wrote some very interesting stuff on this, I'm going to nerd out on the non-comic book side for just a second. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you should read some George Lakoff. So he is psychology. He's a professor, and he writes a lot of stuff about political divisions. And he talks about how people on the left have lost control of that narrative that you're talking about. And he kind of brings it all. I mean, I don't know necessarily if it's true or not, but it's super fascinating to read. Brings it all back to how we're kind of raised in our homes and the types of family structure that is valued and revered, and that's where our values come from. So on one side, you have a strong father figure who is, or like a strong parent, well, it's father figure who is the strong parent, and they tell you what to do, and it's fear-based, and they hurt you because they love you, and because of this and this and this and this. And then on the other side, you have a home structure in which mom and dad are equal, or dad and dad or whomever are equal, and they value input and conversation with children, and conversations and changing and challenging. And for my money, from where I sit, I was raised in more of that type of a home. And that's the type of a home that we try and raise. I have 2 small children. We try and raise our boys in. And I would say, if you want to get back to moral patriotism, to me, the ultimate patriots, not just in the history of our country, but in the history of the world, are the people who have fought the system, right? I mean, if you want to look at, I was talking about this last night with my brothers about churches and, I mean, Martin Luther was a revolutionary, right? Yeah. He brought, being able to read the Bible to the masses. And then you have, patriots that I thought of in the history of the United States are people like Washington, obviously, Lincoln, Rosa Parks, Susan B. Anthony, Harriet Tubman, people for whom patriotism meant that they expanded who freedom was for, right? And so, again, back to that protest, that peaceful protest is always, to me, a part of that moral patriotism, expanding freedom for other people.
Well, and you say peaceful protest, and I'm going to take a risk going out here and saying this, that our entire country was founded upon non-peaceful protest. But at the same time, it was also the most gentlemanlike form of war. I mean, they even did it in calligraphy. So it was, but, we can't denounce, so let's say a nonviolent but personal property was destroyed. Yeah, that was a Boston Tea Party. Nowadays it's a CVS. But, how can we celebrate and hold one up in esteem while saying the other one is an act of criminality and, you need to go to jail? It's like the very thing that kickstarted us actually becoming a nation. But you do that today for the very same reasons, for the same principles, for the same morality, you're going to do time.
Yeah. The USA and its foundations, was that necessarily protests or a defense of non-peaceful aggression? I don't know.
It's probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
A phrase that I love, and I don't know who said it. I say it a lot to my people in my circle, because I've been involved in politics. But the phrase is, for every Martin Luther King, you also need a Malcolm X. And, showing both polarities of the same movement and how both are necessary. I don't think Martin Luther King would have achieved what he achieved had also not this wing, who was a little bit less peaceful, were also doing what they were doing. And both are necessary, the yin and the yang, the hot and the cold, the peaceful and the forceful.
Yeah.
Both are necessary.
So you're saying I'm going to go there. We need the Porter Rockwells.
Yeah, even here locally, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing like with a parent. You go to, like, growing up, Dad was always the stern one and everything like that. He was always saying no, but you can always go to Mom and she would say yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same type of concept. Is you need. I look at my grandparents. My grandpa was extremely stern, very old school, but without my grandma's love and compassion of it, it wouldn't have worked. But the two of them together, they have achieved so much and they have done so much. And, that's why you need that yin and yang. You need the peanut butter to the jelly type of thing. You can't really be that big in that.
So who is the yin to Captain America's yang then?
The yin, you could do Red Skull, or you could even do Winter Soldier at sometimes.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of different things. At sometimes it was probably the presidential. It was probably, some of the other things.
Or even look at the Avengers. You had, when they broke up, you had the
Tony Stark.
Team Tony.
Yeah.
And then you also had Team Captain. And both were necessary for the ultimate survival. And so, they did what they had to do. One is cover for them, but also realizing that to a certain degree, they're right.
Does that introduce further tribalism, though?
I don't think necessarily tribalism as much as, if the opposition tries to make us tribal, they try to make things binary. And, when it comes to the point that, and I guess that brings up here to our in our real world parallel, are we advocating violence? Not necessarily, but also not necessarily taking that off the table. Because, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary, ... it becomes necessary. And is that moral? Is that it? Well, if it's for a moral cause, if it's to restore the moral center, if everything else has failed and that's the only way, then game on. And that's what patriotism demands. You and I, we've sworn an oath to defend the Constitution from enemies foreign and domestic. And, that's same with your husband, there may come a time where it is necessary to defend what we hold dear.
Yeah. I mean, you could even this yin and yang. You could even bring it to Star Wars.
Yeah.
The light side and the dark side. I mean, you've got them both, and without the other, one doesn't exist. And that's why I like to walk the line in the middle. I like I'm the gray Jedi. That's both have the right aspects and the right views to a point. But you can't go full Sith.
Yeah.
Don't go full Sith.
Don't go full Sith, unless you're me.
Or your heart gets broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, no, it's a very I love these deep philosophical questions. Like, at what point does it become necessary? Yeah. At what point does it require you to break the law to uphold the higher law? And so it's a really difficult question. So we're going to come to commercial break, and we'll take it on the backside.
The Kubota L2501 tractor is one of the best-selling compact tractors in America for a reason. They're comfortable, spacious, easy to control, and have a range of performance-matched implements to tackle all kinds of jobs. Right now, get a Kubota L2501 with a 6-year warranty, plus 0% APR financing for up to 60 months, or great customer instant rebates. Now through December 31st, 2018. See us or go to KubotaUSA.com for more information.
Find a Kubota dealer near you at GoKubota.com.
When the fake news stations are slick as ice this winter, cut through with K-Talk Media, your favorite local talk station.
AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. No limits, no labels. Aging is changing. Visit aarp.org/UT for more information. Make the most of each day with AARP.
When a challenge rises up, do we let it stand in our way or go the distance to overcome it? I didn't want to stay at the bottom, but after I was shot in Afghanistan, I was told I'd never walk again, if I even survived. My wife and healthcare providers were there to help me climb my hill. I learned that psychological care is key to recovery from both physical and invisible wounds. Decide now that I will take the first step. Visit realwarriors.net or call 800-874-2273.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. Our veterans put everything on the line to protect our freedom. We may never be able to repay them for their sacrifice, but we can show them just how much we appreciate all they've done. Please visit www.volunteer.va.gov.
The weekend is coming, and you need to plan a date night. You could go to a movie and dinner, but there's nothing original about that. Here's a new and exciting idea. Take your date indoor shooting at the Armory Gun Range. Instead of renting a bowling lane or playing miniature golf, you can rent a shooting lane at the Armory Gun Range. Impress your spouse or your date with your original plan. The Armory can provide both guns and ammo, and rookies are welcome.
I would be excited if my boyfriend took me shooting. The Armory is located in Sandy at 9210 South and 248 West. The phone number is 801-447-1789. Again, that is 801-447-1789. You can also check out their website at armoryshootingrange.com. The range is open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
The Armory Gun Range, blowing holes in boring date nights.
Welcome back, comic fans. We now return to Comic.Church, leaving you right where we left off before the break. And now here's your host, Pastor Drew the Fairy Godbrother, the Monsignor of Marvel, Sean Ray, and the Reverend Sith Lord himself, Jesse Stay.
Welcome back.
Good day.
I'm a good Sith Lord, though.
Wait, how does that work?
A good Sith Lord?
Yeah,
that's...
We haven't heard the
Isn't
whole
that just
story
like
on
Yoda?
Sith versus Jedi yet, so you're going to flip it around on us eventually.
Yeah, we'll have to do a topic
They'll be the
on
good
that.
Sith?
Yeah, the good Sith.
I'm the good Sith, I promise. Come to my side.
There's got to be a story about that somewhere.
I'm the good Sith lollipop.
That's right. I'm like Finn, but a Sith. I like...
Yeah.
I was raised in the dark side, but I think some of the light side.
I'm the opposite of Anakin.
So yeah, before break, we were talking about the philosophical, the collegiate educational conversation about at what point do we fight for the things that are important, and just looking historically, through the patterns of history, at some point there becomes a point where the division becomes so great that a civil war is necessary. And we were talking in the break, just how disgusting that makes us feel, thinking about that could be a potential timeline that we're headed towards. And have we gone beyond the point? Can we do a U-turn? Can we do a pivot and move away from that? Can we recognize it? And just the philosophical discussion on it is it's distressing. It really.
Yeah. I mean, I have to diverge from you guys a little bit. I don't think that we're there yet. I think that there is plenty to go.
Yeah.
I think that times are stressful, and I think that's a part because we're in the age of information, and a part because we're segregating ourselves in terms of, people of a certain political belief system are moving more to the urban areas, and others are staying in the rural areas. And of course, there's economics that come into it.
Well, and even those that are, live together, just thinking of the fact that, on a different day, there's a host that sits in this chair that is literally the polar opposite of the political ideology of what I believe. And, I think I don't think this person would ever want to be in the same room that I'm in.
Oh, he's raised that chair down.
That we're...
We've left a few whoopee cushions
that
there.
There's been... but the polarity, the division is so divided, and that makes me sad.
Yeah.
So if we want to talk about political divisions, it was this past year, it was last year, the shooting happened at Parkland.
Yeah.
Right. And that was, I think it was on Valentine's Day, and I remember I was up at the legislature when I read about it, and I was like, oh, another shooting, here we go. And of course, 17 people, I believe, lost their lives that day. And after that shooting, what I did as someone who has traditionally not been a fan of guns, is I called one of my husband's friends, former coworker, who considers most of our local politicians to be too liberal.
Yeah.
Very, very opposite end of the political spectrum from myself. And I tell this story a lot, but what I asked him to take me shooting at a gun range.
Okay.
And I've shot a gun before. It was a 22 rifle. It was we shot clay pigeons out in out in the desert when I was younger. And the reason I asked him to take me shooting was because I wanted to really understand what I was talking about when we had these conversations.
That's unheard of.
And so
how
we
dare
went,
you have a
knowledge
non-extended understanding of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting experience. I will say, for one, I'm a good shot.
Yeah.
Number two, I understand why people like guns. And number three, I would never want a gun in a classroom, especially after that experience.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that was the response that a lot of people had. It was the solution is to have kids either throw rocks at the people or, to have guns in the classroom. But so he was so excited to work with me. And so, I mean, and he and I have gone face to face screaming at each other about our different political beliefs. And then afterwards, I bought him lunch and we sat down and we talked for an hour through the intricacies of where he is on guns in the home. And of course, he believes the more guns, the better. And I'm on the opposite end. And so we talked it out. And at the end of this conversation, after listening and understanding each other's communication strategies, which sounds really weird, but I'm a comms person, so that's my thing. We came to an agreement on something that I never thought we would come to an agreement on. And this was asked after an hour of us asking each other questions and then listening and really trying to understand.
Okay.
And now I get it. That was exhausting.
Yeah.
And he and I were both fairly well equipped to have that conversation because we know how to have those conversations. But I mean, I know this is so simplistic, but for me, it's always when things get scary in the big world, you turn hyper-local.
I like
so
that.
it's your neighborhood, it's your neighbors, put down your phone, put down the TV. And that's hard for me because I am someone who lives a lot online.
Yeah.
And, go have dinner with your neighbors, and start talking about it. And to me, that always seems to be the remedy that I turn to. And so far it's helped. I mean, I've not cured any ills, but...
Well, I wouldn't say you cured any ills, but you definitely were part of making ripples in your pond locally.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said about that, because that, to use a DC quote from the Superman movie, when Clark is having a hard time focusing because his powers are, when he's a kid, his powers are growing. He can hear everybody, he could see through everybody, and it's just he's freaking out. And because the world becomes so big for him that he doesn't know how to process it. And so his mom, what does his mom say? Focus.
Yeah.
Just go small. Think, just be here. And the same thing I think happens here. When I'm watching the national news, my anxiety scale, my watch actually has a measure of it, but you see my blood pressure go up. It just the longer I'm watching the news, the higher it goes. It's the end of the world. Is a civil war coming? We're losing our allies. If there is a world war and we have no allies left, we're going to lose. Is it going to be China? Is it going to be Russia? Is it going to be everybody? You start thinking, and again, we talk about this on the show, but when your consciousness, when your mind, when your focus goes to the future about everything that could go wrong and could possibly go wrong, you're going to be,
or the world around you.
It's overwhelming.
The fact of the matter is that you're bigger than all of that. And that's why I really love the story of Superman. Why I keep bringing it back up is Superman epitomized and you could probably apply some of this to Captain America, but even more so, Superman epitomized that idea of a non-violent light to the world. He was in many ways the Jesus of the DC universe, and and to go back to like a biblical term, the idea of letting your light shine. Is a beautiful term, actually, and that when we are seeing issues in the world, if we go back within ourselves and find ways, rather than become violent, but rather than arguing, rather than knocking door to door. I had an argument with some other Christians around this the other day. I shouldn't have been arguing for one, but
no, I mean, argument's good. Like, you should argue, but argue with debate is great. But argue with like a good leave the room and you still love each other.
But to argue that point, which is more powerful, just living and letting your light shine in a way that others can learn from, or trying to argue every single day. I'm not saying argument's bad. I think there are times where it makes sense, like in the debate you had with your friends. In that case, you were asking each other questions, though, and I think when you focus on questions, there's the energy of what you're trying to get to ends up persisting through the conversation.
It's very different when you ask questions versus when you tell.
And one of the big important things is listening and understanding. I mean, because you can argue and just try to get your point across to the other person, or you can debate and understand where they're coming from and kind of relating in some ways. And that's where, when you can leave the conversation, be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not so upset and pissed off at you as of before, where I think you're wrong.
Right. And something that brings me a lot of comfort as I'm falling asleep and realize that I brought 2 children into this world is that this is like, data backs this up, studies back this up, that there are way more Captain Americas in this country than there are insert villain here. There's way more of them, and that brings me a lot of comfort and conversations like these.
I think so. And also, I was kind of along with with what I was saying earlier, it looks like we're headed to a very a future of divergence, where that is. And I'm reminded, we're going to jump out of Marvel a little bit, but to Star Trek Discovery, which is the new Star Trek series.
Great.
So it is. It really is. It took me a couple episodes to get into it, but I'm going to give a season 1 spoiler. So spoiler alert. But at the end of the season, they're 10 years before the original Star Trek series, so Captain Kirk and Spock and all that. So, and before that was a Klingon War. And so season 1 of Star Trek Discovery is in the height of that Klingon War, where the Federation is getting their butt kicked. They're almost to the point of destroyed. They've destroyed 2/3 of the entire fleet, and they're just about to make it to Earth. And so, Earth and the Federation plans a counterattack where they're going to destroy Kronos. If you destroy their enemy homeworld, they won't have the will to continue to fight us, was basically their premise. And they were just about to do that when one of the characters, Michael Burnham, who in the beginning of the series was the one who actually started the war accidentally. She basically stands up and says no. The quote she said is, the only way, and they're talking about fear. The only way to defeat fear is to tell it no. No, we will not take shortcuts on the path to righteousness. No, we will not break the rules that protect us from our basest instincts. No, we will not allow desperation to destroy our moral authority. And, I think ultimately, we could even go to a Star Wars quote from the new Star Wars, he was willing to die for what he believed in. And then, she stops him and says, but you need to be willing to live for what you're fighting for. And, just that mindset, like, yes, we can go this way. And all of our leaders, all of our political parties, all of our tribes, they're playing the fear. They're trying to ferment fear and ferment division. And, it's kind of with what Michael Burnham said. We need to tell it no. Mm-hmm. You need to look fear in the face and you say no, just like you would a child. No. And not give it hold, not give it root, because, again, fear it's a contagion. Fear is alive. Fear, it's like a virus. It jumps from person to person. Once you catch it, you can pass it on. And it's so hard to contain. And the way you contain it, first, you tell it no. And the way you combat fear is with love.
Radical love.
Radical love. And, back to what you were saying, go small in your own neighborhood. If you want to change the world, start making ripples in your own pond and let it go out from there.
Jesse, I love that you brought up This Little Light of Mine, because during Charlottesville, which of course was the white supremacist march in Charlottesville, and a woman lost her life because of all these things, and it was a very terrifying time, and also because we're in the age that we're in, it was streamed live multiple places, right? Mm-hmm. And that day when I was watching it from my phone, holding my small infant son and just being terrified about the state of the world, I was brought to tears because there was a group of clergy from various faith backgrounds who were standing around holding hands and singing that song, This Little Light of Mine. And I was like, oh my God, in this awful incident and time and age of division and strife, when we can't agree what patriotism even means, these people from different backgrounds who have different beliefs are holding hands and just saying, let's appeal to the goodness. Mm-hmm. And that's a part of that.
Yeah.
A lot of this goes back to my favorite quote of Captain America, and I've even said this on this podcast before. He says, it doesn't matter what the press says, doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say, doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something is wrong. Something wrong is something right. This nation was founded on the principle above all else, the requirement that we stand up for what we believe, no matter the odds or the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Truth stands firm. That's the beautiful part about it, is it's there. You don't have to seek it. And if you're on the side of truth, it stands with you.
It does. And again, I love just this repeating of the mindset. You tell it no. You and you and I we understand PTSD, and one of the root of PTSD is fear. That's how it just takes root, and sometimes you literally have to shout at yourself, no, stop, and that it's so true. Every time we need to recognize it and call it out, tell it no. reject it. Or as our friend Jen likes to say, return to sender with consciousness attached.
That's right.
But you're listening to Comic.Church. We got one more segment here coming up after this break. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. Our veterans put everything on the line to protect our freedom. We may never be able to repay them for their sacrifice, but we can show them just how much we appreciate all they've done. You can help by simply sharing your time, lending a warm smile, a supportive hand, or a sympathetic ear to someone who needs it. Everyone can do something to make veterans know just how much we appreciate their service. Please visit www.volunteer.va.gov. What will you do?
I am a veteran. I spent 2 years alone and homeless.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My victory was finding the support to get back on my feet.
DAV helps veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I'm a veteran. When I got out, I felt like nowhere was safe.
So veterans can reach victories, great and small.
My victory was finding the help I needed. Thanks to DAV, now I feel like I'm human again.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
When it's cold outside, warm up with the hottest live local two-way talk. K-Talk Media, 1640 AM.
What if you were wearing something sexy? What if you were drinking? What if you made the first move? No matter what, sexual assault is never your fault. Support is available 24/7 through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Call 1-800-656-HOPE or visit RAINN.org. That's RAINN.org. This is Christina Ricci with RAINN, reminding you it's never your fault.
Brought to you by RAINN and this station.
Choosing your next Utah home should be a fun and exciting experience. As Utah's heritage home builder, Perry Homes is constantly striving to give our home buyers more for their money. More new homes in Utah, more desirable Utah home locations, more timeless designs, more inherent home value, and lasting pride of ownership. At Perry Homes, we make it our top priority to ensure the home buying process is as joyful and stress-free as possible. Our 40-plus year heritage has been forged on the principle of building Utah homes of high value in the communities where Utah families want to live, and giving our home buyers the quality of home we're proud to call a Perry home. Visit us at perryhomesutah.com to see current Utah home locations and available home styles and floor plans. Perry Homes. We build homes where Utah families want to live.
Welcome back to Comic.Church on K-Talk, AM 1640, real local two-way talk. And we're back. So, welcome back. Before we finish up and wrap up the conversation, Katie, tell us about what it is you do when you're not guest co-hosting on Comic.Church.
Like I said, I'm the communications director for Alliance for a Better Utah. And Better Utah is a nonprofit organization that was kind of born in 2011. And we are multi-pronged. On one side, we do good government accountability stuff. So we're a watchdog. We spend every single day up at the legislature during the session, watching bills, watching what's going on, and then alerting people. So that's our big thing, is we're a communications hub. So we let people know what's going on. And in particular, we're holding hashtag Prop Watch, and we're watching for the 3 propositions and any adjustments. And we anticipate, we all know what happened with Prop 2, but with Prop 3 and Prop 4, we're anticipating some attempts at changing those or completely gutting them. And so we're just going to be giving people updates like, this is what's happened, this is what's happening, this is what we can expect, and letting people know, because that session goes fast, and it is fast and furious.
Bills, and they intentionally do that.
Right.
And, they'll hold things out to the very last day. Mm-hmm. So
that's how the Inland Port was started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how can people find you guys?
So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Better Utah, and we are on the internets at betterutah.org.
Okay.
And so we've had a great privilege of seeing a massive uprising in civic engagement the past couple of years, and it's great. And so we don't do a lot of federal stuff. We do a little bit, but mostly local. Because there's such a dearth of that here, and so we find it to be very needed. So if you're interested in any one of the propositions, or just like how to get involved during the session, or even after or before, feel free to reach out. We're always watching Twitter, and we're very snarky on Twitter, so it's fun.
Very funny. Awesome. Yes, and also either we're plugging your page, like our Facebook page as well, both Comic.Church and also Church on K-Talk. We got both of them going. So yeah, let's wrap up this conversation we've been having today. Moral patriotism versus toxic patriotism. We've given plenty of examples of toxic patriotism in our lives. The signs of it, the language, the terms, the ways they control, manipulate the conversation and people into thinking. And then we transition to, how can we change? How can we affect change? And that's what, we like to, we'll talk about the problems, but one thing we do talk about on the show is, we like to wrap it up with, what are solutions? How can we fix it? We all recognize the problem now, so now let's stop complaining and let's fix it. Using examples of Steve Rogers, I think, is a good example of what it is we can strive for, to have a healthy level of patriotism.
That's really interesting that you say that, because as I was thinking about Captain America, he's very patriotic, but he is not jingoistic. And so to not have the type of patriotism, I'm doing air quotes, patriotism, where it's, I'm going to share my patriotic love for my country with everyone, and you are going to adhere to my ideals. It's a love of, I mean, it's a little hippy dippy when I put it that way, but you know what I mean.
We're all hippy dippy on this show.
The video's not showing. I'm trying to show Drew here.
Oh yeah, I forgot to switch over. Well, there.
I was raising my phone in the air, trying to give Drew a message and showing him that the video wasn't playing.
I know. So many different controls that I'm trying, and I guess I missed
Drew
that
does
one.
a good job here.
We need a producer. If you would like,
good segue,
or interested in becoming a producer,
yes,
message us on our pages. We don't have money yet, but eventually we'll all get paid.
I'll bring coffee.
We'll bring coffee and food.
Yeah, we could do that for sure.
But yeah, it's hard
Pancakes.
hosting and producing at the same time.
Oh, bring it around! I love it. That's like well bookended with pancakes.
Pancakes fix everything. But yeah, so rippling in our own pond.
Well, here's something I wanted to read. This is kind of more. This kind of will end up on Captain America's ethics and everything.
Yeah.
It said that Captain America is the moral compass of the Marvel Universe. He's the standard of virtue against which all other heroes should be measured. To give a sense of purity of his heart and conscience, it is best to quote him directly. And it says, he's said, "This land of ours may have seen some hard times, and maybe it hasn't always lived up to the promise of the founding fathers. But America, at its best, has always stood for the rights of man and against the rule of tyrants. And if America needs a man to stand up for their principles, to battle for the forces of tyranny, then as God is my witness, I shall be the man." And then he's told this to the Hydra, "Like every other tyrant, your lust for power masks your true motive. Fear of free society, for with freedom man has pride, dignity, and a sense of destiny. Your fear causes you to arrogantly mock those concepts. You seek to reduce mankind to your own level, but against every despot there has always arisen a champion of liberty. That is why I exist, and why men like me shall always win."
I like that.
That's great. That's great. I personally, I like to. I'm going to take it back to access consciousness principle of asking a question, and the question on this is what would it take for us to bring out our inner Captain Americas so that the rest of the world is feeling the same energy to make that same change. And I think if we look within and we look more and more into what is the light that we have within, we start to realize that we are capable ourselves of making that change. We're more powerful than anything else in the world. Once you realize that about yourself, and can obtain the peace from that, then you have the capability of actually inducing change that not only changes the world, but entirely changes your universe. And that's powerful. If we can teach more and more people to love themselves, to feel that inner Captain America in themselves, Superman, Captain America, whatever your preferred character is.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. I'm sorry, I
yeah.
need to get, look at me. Thank you. I'm glad we have a feminine voice here, because I completely agree. I actually like Wonder Woman.
We need to have a Wonder Woman episode.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And maybe we get we need to outnumber us men in that episode too. But yeah, I mean, we are capable, just as any of these characters are, to change the world, and we can do that ourselves by making that change, and it starts just around us. And it actually starts within fixing ourselves first.
Well, and I'm gonna pull from let's pull biblically. How can we affect change? Okay, remember the phrase, "When saw we thee a stranger?" And I'm referencing Matthew 24. When we're looking after the least of these among us, the hungry, those without food, without again, a buzzword local, the refugees, the prisoner, all of those that red letter text that Jesus literally said, these are the least of these among us. What you do to them, you do to me. And, remembering that. So as we're going through, when we knee-jerk reaction to seeing the homeless person, instead of saying, don't make eye contact with them, they're probably just going to go buy booze. Remember, least of these among us.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happened, I'm going to help them. Whatever they do, that's on them. My judgment of what they do with my help should not be contingent upon me responding to that commandment, if that's your belief, of, that's the least of these among us. Yeah. And start locally. We have refugees here that definitely have felt the brunt of some of this toxic patriotism. We have homeless, we have people that are in need, we have federal workers who aren't getting paychecks. There's so much we can do to make, be Captain Americas in our own community. Find out who's hungry, who isn't getting paid, make sure they're getting, there's so many different things we could do to fix things just here locally.
If you want a good person to follow, look up Mark Horvath. He's a friend of mine. We need to have him on the show at some point. He started a blog a while back called, I'm going to butcher it. Is it Invisible People? I can't remember, but I think it's Invisible People. And he was homeless himself, and was able to get out of homelessness. But it features homeless person after homeless person after homeless person, and he talks on his social media channels. He's been to Salt Lake before, and talks on his social media channels, and has built this incredible YouTube presence and such, where he just talks about just empathizing with homeless on the streets, and you get a whole new view when you can see it from the homeless person's view of where they stand. And if we can all just sit in that frame of view of put yourself in the view of any particular person that you may be judging, and if you can truly get yourself in their shoes and realize that what would make you feel better today, that would be I think that's he's showing me. I think it's Invisible People Without TV. I think is what it is. If it's about homeless, that's what it is. So and I'll put a link in the thing and tag him so he knows he's being talked about. But
and can I take that a step further? Just speaking from a political standpoint. So I love that you guys are talking about like the change within you, the change in your communities, but then it's also important that we start to elevate people who have these qualities and talk about these qualities and then are willing to legislate these qualities, which I know is not something that anybody wants to talk about at church, but who we have in positions of power can be a reflection of us. And I don't necessarily know that. I think that right now, not necessarily just our local legislature, but all elected officials, it's more of a representation of our a lot of people disengaging from the process.
Yes.
And I know that the process
Yeah.
can be overwhelming and tiring, and I have respect for that. I have deep respect for that. On the other hand, if we want to see change on a systemic level, we need to be putting people who reflect these values and live these values in office.
And that is so true, because, you know, you can affect all the change you want in your local pond, but, you know, you also have to recognize that there's people legislating and controlling that pond, and the people that are doing that are also the ones that are usually the establishment, the developers, and all that. So you can make all the change you want, but they're going to legislate a different change if they don't like it. And so, you know, we need to get people in there that represent, you know, the community, and, you know, not necessarily represent the developers and all of the special interests that really have control of our government.
And
so
now is like a perfect time to be doing that, because it's 2019, so we do have elections this November. We've got municipal elections, which is local, which are super important. You should vote.
Yeah.
But now is the time to be organizing your neighborhood, you know? And by organizing, I literally mean like hosted, like literally a dinner with your family. There's a reason breaking bread is biblical, right?
Yeah.
You know, eating and talking is revolutionary. And then taking those conversations, and when the time comes, say like, you know, who amongst us could represent our voices in local offices of power? And that's not just the legislature. That's like school board. That's like, you know, all of these local offices. And it seems so silly, and I feel like politically wonky, but the importance of them cannot be overstated.
That is so true.
I don't know whatever happened to when I was younger. There were things called block parties. You know, your neighborhood. You know, you
social media happened.
And that's true. I mean, we'd all get together. I remember, you know, shutting down the street that we lived on, and everybody would come out, have a potluck, and get to know each other, talk to each other. I mean, bring up points of interest in the neighborhood, and just, you know, be more connected.
We should start a movement, Make America Block Party again.
Yeah, I like that.
We should use National Night Out to do that. There's actually a whole day that is actually celebrated around the nation, and I think it's becoming less and less so, but we could bring back.
I like that.
Or do it monthly.
Coming up to the last minute of the show, let's just quickly go around for our hopes for what can affect change. Let's start with you, Katie.
My hope for how we can affect change. I want to see just more people involved in the process, and involved with their neighbors.
Outstanding.
I just hope that we can kind of eliminate picturing people and having opinions of them, and just be open-minded about everything, and have a voice, and, you know, share your opinion, and, you know, listen to other people and see what you can do to help.
Totally. 10 seconds.
My hope for how we can affect change is to just have everyone in the world learn their authentic selves and learn to love themselves, so they can then let that light shine.
Amen. You're listening to Comic.Church. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Enough said.
Hey there, comic book fans and believers in all things geekdom. This is Pastor Drew, the Fairy Godbro, and I just want to let you know that all of us here at Comic.Church are working hard to build a place that we can all come to, a place of refuge, a place to be edified by the universes that inspire us the most. And this show, it's just the launching off point. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast, Church, using your favorite podcasting service. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, and more. Also, please like our Facebook page, Church on K-Talk. On our page, you'll have a chance to interact with us live each Sunday. Plus, you'll have a chance to hear from us as we post our thoughts, inspirational somethings, and whatnots all throughout the week. We have so much in store for 2019 and into the future, and we invite you to come along and be a part of it. We at Comic.Church know exactly how important fans are, and we thank you for taking a chance and being our fans.
Military life is rewarding, but it isn't always easy. Managing the stress can affect even the strongest warrior.
But I will stay mission ready.
I will keep my mind and body fit.
Talk to my chaplain.
Seek care early.
Strive for progress, not perfection.
I got this.
I got this.
Take the first step. There's no better time than now.
Reaching out is a sign of strength. Visit realwarriors.net or call 800-874-2273.
Townhall.com. I'm Gordon Griffin.
The showdown over a border wall continues. Correspondent Greg Clugston has more.
There are no talks scheduled between the White House and Democrats as the partial government shutdown enters its fourth week. The two sides are engaged in an all-out fight over a border wall that the president says is necessary for national security. Even though government workers missed their paychecks on Friday, Congress left for the weekend, leaving President Trump here at the White House, blaming Democrats for the stalemate. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May has pleaded with lawmakers to accept her deal for leaving the European Union, warning that faith and democracy was at stake. Here's correspondent Zara Shakely.
Writing in the Sunday Express ahead of a critical vote this week, May urged lawmakers to do what's right for the country. She said rejecting the will of the people would be a catastrophic and unforgivable breach of trust in democracy.